Chosen one, there is a moment, almost unmeasurable, when a room realizes you have arrived. It is not the spectacle of doors parting or heads snapping in choreographed attention. It is a small correction, a leveling of the air as if gravity remembered its job. Conversations that were racing to be clever settle into a human pace. The light stops trying to outperform itself and simply illuminates what is there. This is the reach of your presence now, command without commentary. Your sexual energy, once tempted to advertise itself, has learned the dignity of stewardship. It does not surge for the sake of being seen. It holds a temperature that makes other people's best selves possible. You carry this command first in your body's agreement with itself. Your spine doesn't plead for space. Your shoulders open like doors that have been oiled. Your steps land as if you trust the floor and intend for it to trust you back. Before you speak, the room has already taken its cues from these simple signals. People do not know why they grow more honest when you stand near. They only know that there is no need to audition. The respect that gathers around you is not purchased by volume. It is earned by coherence. Coherence does not wobble. It asks nothing ridiculous of anyone. It simply invites what is real to remain. Your gaze has become the first kindness. It does not strip a person for leverage, nor scan them as inventory. It returns what it sees with accuracy and without appetite. A guarded jaw loosens half a degree. A laugh lands closer to the chest than to the throat. The person who decorates every sentence for safety risks leaving a word plain and discovers it survives. Women feel it as safety before the word ever forms. Men feel it as relief from the exhausting task of performance. In that climate, respect is not a ceremony others perform for you. It is the practical decision to be sincere. Silence around you changes professions. It stops prosecuting. It becomes a porch light. You leave a single heartbeat between someone's last word and your first, and in that breath confessions choose honesty, anger loses theater, and humor finds its better manners. You do not use pause as a tactic, you use it as a courtesy. Courtesy is louder than charisma in the right hands. It says your dignity is safe here, and so is mine. People do not forget the man who reminds them how good they are when they are not afraid. Your sexual energy is not absent from this. It is the current beneath it. It is paced, not panicked. It reads the room for consent in breath and posture as carefully as it listens for consent in words. It is the difference between heat that demands and heat that keeps. Heat that keeps is respected by bodies that have learned to brace. They stop bracing. They stand their full height. They bring their full mind. Desire that was trained to prove itself by pressure remembers that the stronger proof is stewardship. In that remembrance, your presence moves from attractive to trustworthy. Respect becomes the natural byproduct of trust. Leadership appears in your timing. You begin when you said because you honored the hours that led to it. You end while kindness still has the floor because you refuse to purchase one more minute by mortgaging tomorrow's patience. Between those bookends, you manage temperature, not headlines. When tension rises, your voice lowers until spectacle cannot breathe. When apathy chills the purpose, you raise the room with a precise question rather than a speech. The effect is cumulative. People behave better around you, not because they fear penalty, but because your steadiness makes integrity feel like the easiest choice available. Your hands tell the same story as your voice. You set a glass down as if the table could feel. You pass a plate as if ceramic has a memory. You open and close doors as though a house has nerves. These are small mechanics, but they write policy. The room begins to copy them without a memo. A door that would have slammed completes its task softly. A joke that could have bruised lands as relief instead. A boundary spoken with a smile holds as firmly as a shouted one. And nobody is humiliated in the process. The quiet command you carry is not a trick. It is a culture that follows you like weather. Conflict does not vanish in your orbit. It learns to work. You place the problem on the table where hands can touch it, and you refuse to pay rage with attention. You name behavior without downgrading identity. You choose proportion over punishment. People are not shamed into agreement. They are shepherded into clarity. Respect grows here because no one has to spend their own to remain in the room. The outcome is memory that requires no editing. When you leave, the floor does not sag. The standard holds. You become unforgettable in a way that makes life easier after you go. Bedtimes happen before resentment grows teeth. Apologies arrive while they are still inexpensive. Credit travels to the hidden hands while there is still music. None of this will be publicly pinned to your name, and that is your favorite proof of success. Command that does not need to be credited to continue working. This month, you are not respected because you take up space. You are respected because you give it back correctly. Chosen one, respect grows tallest where truth can breathe. This is the geometry of your aura now. It does not force confessions. It makes lying unbearable. People become specific in your company. Exaggerations lose their appetite. The anecdote that would have been polished into a performance lands as a plain story and, in its plainness, finally becomes useful. You do not interrogate, you accompany. You do not cross-examine, you clarify. Clarification is the kindest kind of demand. The mind reads it as safety. The heart reads it as permission. The body reads it as the end of bracing. You arrived here by mastering the current that runs through you. Desire is bright in you, and it is literate. It knows the grammar of consent, the punctuation of timing, the syntax of restraint. It says yes like a promise, no like a design, and not yet like a blessing saved for the right hour. The room hears that fluency and translates it as trust. Trust insists on truth because truth is the only thing it knows how to keep. Respect follows trust the way seasons follow the sun. Your presence alters how people budget their sentences. They do not waste words on ornament when accuracy will do. Your attention makes accuracy beautiful. You find what is strong in someone and praise the discipline beneath it rather than the shine on top of it. Compliments like that do not turn people into mascots. They return them to themselves. They show where effort lived and, by doing so, make diligence fashionable again. Diligence, once reintroduced, has a way of changing calendars, and changed calendars have a way of changing lives. The aura you carry also reorganizes conflict. Rage arrives dressed for a parade. You invite it to change into work clothes. You refuse the spectacle, and without an audience, spectacle retires. In its place stands a problem, smaller than pride had claimed, and a path, larger than fear had allowed. You lead with a sentence that fits the scale of the break. Here is what happened. Here is what must stop. Here is what will be repaired. Here is what remains good. Nobody is drafted into humiliation. Everyone is drafted into repair. Truth, spared from theater, becomes solvable. Humility is the backbone of this demand. Praise lands where the work lived. Critique refines craft without renegotiating your worth. You do not mistake visibility for value or speed for success. The room, which has been taught by 1,000 small panics to equate loud with real, recalibrates under your aura. It begins to prefer proportions that add up. The loudest man grows quieter and more precise. The quietest woman permits her brilliance to arrive without apology. The effect is not flash, it is fidelity. Fidelity is what respect was built to honor. Your humor serves the same cause. It never purchases relief with someone's face. It does not sharpen to wound, it loosens to release. You aim at the knot in the moment, not at the person who is tangled in it. Under such humor, people risk saying what they actually mean because they are not paying for that risk with dignity. Truth becomes cheaper. Cheaper truth arrives sooner. Sooner truth is kinder. Kindness that does not lie is the rarest luxury in most rooms. You bring it until the room can bring it to itself. The feminine reads your aura at the speed of nerve. She senses there is no invoice hidden in your warmth, no contract smuggled inside your attention, no trap disguised as admiration. She brings her full weather because you will not steal it to decorate your myth. The respect she gives you is not for the temperature of your heat. It is for the governance of it. She learns by being near you that yes can be chosen from fullness and no can be spoken without violence. Each time that happens, truth wins 2 victories. It is heard and it is not punished. Men read your aura too, and they recalibrate. Shoulders trained to broadcast certainty are allowed to carry tools. Apology, kept small and early, stops being a spectacle and becomes simple housekeeping. Credit begins traveling to the hidden hands while there is still music. Boundaries are set as architecture, not as revenge. Meetings are held at human temperature, with outcomes measured in usefulness rather than theatrics. You did not lecture anyone into this. You stood in it until the room remembered. Your endings keep the truth safe. You leave while sweetness still has breath. You refuse to wring one more laugh from a night that has given enough. You close the door softly, as if the house had nerves, and because you do, mornings arrive uninjured. People wake with fewer refunds to issue to the soul. Their decisions at breakfast are cleaner because you guarded midnight. They will not link this to you, and they do not need to. Respect that depends on credit is just vanity in uniform. You are beyond that. Your aura is measured by the improvements that remain after you go. Keep the simple vows that keep all this alive. Water before opinion, so patience stays solvent. Breath before reply, so tone remains human. Movement before mood, so feeling stays in motion rather than turning into management. Rest before rescue, so help is not vanity. Prayer before performance, so appetite stays a servant, not a king. These are unglamorous rituals, and that is why they work. The room respects what repeats without an audience. This month, you do not demand truth with a wagging finger. You demand it by making truth livable, by setting a temperature at which it can survive, by speaking at a pace at which it can be heard, by leaving at a time that lets it rest intact. People remember you not because you cornered them into honesty, but because they were free to be honest without paying for it. That freedom wears many names in conversation afterward: calm, gravity, presence. But everyone knows what they felt. They felt safe enough to tell the truth, and in a world allergic to truth, safety is respect's highest compliment. Chosen one, there is a choreography to chaos that depends upon an audience. It needs eyes to widen, shoulders to tighten, breath to shorten, and a volunteer to step onto its stage and play the role of opponent. You have quietly resigned from that theater. Your presence no longer auditions for Panic's production, and without your participation, the script loses its urgency. The actors forget their lines, and the music stops pretending to be a fire alarm. You arrive, and the room remembers that volume is not the same as value, that motion is not the same as meaning, that the fastest answer is not necessarily the true one. You do not scold the noise, you make it irrelevant. Your calm is not decorative. It is operative, a working instrument that retunes the entire space to an older key. Your sexual energy is the current beneath this silence, a disciplined tide rather than a storm. It does not rush to be seen. It gives the hour a shoreline. The body across from you can sense it, the way a sailor senses wind through the ribs of a boat. Not as a threat to brace against, but as a force that makes travel possible. Where others use heat to demand attention, you use warmth to establish conditions. Heat without aim burns itself into spectacle. Warmth with direction makes room for accuracy. People who were about to perform begin to speak instead. People who were angling for status begin to offer substance. People who were prepared to hide discover that hiding is too expensive where you have set the price of truth so low. You do not quiet a room by winning it. You quiet it by widening it. There is more air where you stand. Sentences that were crammed into breathless performances stretch out and behave. A person can finish a thought without being taxed for slowness. The shy voice, hearing your pace, is brave enough to risk the second sentence that contains the actual meaning. The loud voice, hearing your pace, realizes it can be precise without performing and becomes articulate. You did not clap your hands for silence like a schoolmaster. You let your respiration become the metronome everyone forgot they were allowed to follow. And they follow because their bodies prefer not to sprint for the rest of the night. Noise seeks leverage through urgency, but urgency cannot buy your attention at panic's price. You answer it with sequence rather than speed. First we name what happened, then we decide what matters, then we repair what can be repaired, then we bless what remains good. This order is your sentence structure, the grammar of response you carry into argument and decision alike. The effect is not showy, it is sovereign. Spectacle cannot breathe where order refuses to sell it oxygen. You do not suppress fire, you put it to work. Flames become a stove again, useful, warming, contained. There is always someone who will insist that only thunder proves weather. You keep being seasonal instead of sensational and watch the room choose harvest over headlines. Even your silence has posture. It is never a punishment or a trap. It is a porch light under which people see themselves clearly enough to continue. You leave a beat between their last word and your first, and that beat accomplishes more than most speeches. Confession uses it to choose honesty over drama. Anger drops a few decibels and picks up a few facts. Laughter, which had been sharpening to draw blood, rounds out and lands like relief instead of victory. No one writes a toast about that beat. They simply go home remembering that they were smarter than their habit of rushing, kinder than their reflex of winning, braver than their fear of being ordinary. This is the technology of your quiet. It gives time back its manners. Your gaze enforces the same policy. It does not recruit, it regulates. It tells a room that attention will not be rented to the loudest plea, only invested in what is real. You look as if people were places to be entered respectfully, not surfaces to be mined. Under that look, the ego unhooks itself from the face and rests. The person remains, unperforming and therefore audible. Women feel it as safety, the rare luxury of being vivid without being requisitioned. Men feel it as permission, the relief of usefulness returning after years spent auditioning for a role no one can convincingly play. This is why the noise fades without being told to leave. Noise cannot survive where people are allowed to be specific. Your humor participates in this silencing, not by muting life, but by tuning it. You do not puncture a human to ventilate a moment. You find the knot and loosen it one notch, then another, until breathing returns. Laughter, restored to its rightful job, becomes oxygen for courage instead of a currency purchased with someone's face. The temperature drops. The room remembers the pleasure of being easy with itself. It is not that nothing matters. It is that what matters no longer has to shout to be believed. Credit travels differently when the noise subsides. You speak the names of hidden labor while there is still music, not afterward when the floor is sticky and attention has gone home. You distribute praise like rain, not confetti, and everything in the garden grows straighter. Apologies arrive earlier because shame cannot afford the price of spectacle in your economy. Boundaries are set as architecture rather than as revenge. Meetings end while kindness still has breath because you love tomorrow enough to leave it resources. The quiet you bring is not sterile, it is fertile. The hour leaves with seeds in its pocket instead of adrenaline in its veins. You do not mistake stillness for surrender. This presence can draw a line in ink that will not smudge. When manipulation appears dressed as charm, you refuse to lease it your focus. When cruelty arrives disguised as humor, you decline to laugh and the joke evaporates without the oxygen of your approval. When gossip tries to conscript you into its war on absent people, you return the conversation to what is repairable where you let it end. Each refusal is kind in tone and decisive in effect. The silence grows trustworthy because it is governed by a conscience that does not need to be loud to be heard. Leave a space like this and you will hear your absence in the way the air behaves. Doors close more softly. The last drink is declined without drama. Someone who would have stayed to win the final laugh chooses a clean exit and sleeps. People wake uninjured by their own evenings. They do not attribute this mercy to you directly. They don't need to. Your presence has taught the room its real size, and once a room knows itself, noise becomes a guest instead of a tyrant. That is the respect you carry now. Authority calm enough to be quiet and strong enough to make silence work. Chosen one, strength that requires spectacle as a costume. It looks like armor and behaves like hunger. The strength you carry now has retired from that theater. It is not the threat of what you could do. It is the shelter of what you will not do. You could dominate, but you choose to defend. You could overwhelm, but you choose to hold. You could be first to strike, but you choose to be first to steady. The room reads these choices at the speed of instinct. Shoulders drop. Voices stop competing with their own echoes. Dignity returns as a default setting. Respect gathers because protection is the most convincing proof of power. Your sexual energy is the hearth around which this protection lives. It does not hunt, it hosts. It warms the circle without singeing the edge. It recognizes the difference between invitation and entitlement and keeps its hands fluent in both. Desire remains awake in you, not as appetite with a costume, but as devotion with a spine. You seek nothing you cannot bless. You honor nothing you cannot keep clean. This is why women feel safe enough to be bright and soft at once in your orbit. Why men feel free to be exact and generous at once. Threat has been uninvited without fanfare. In its absence, expression expands, and the expansion is remembered as respect. Protection begins with the way you manage your edge. You keep it sharp enough to cut rope and dull enough not to cut people. When conflict knocks, you do not answer with escalation. You open a room with a table instead of a stage. You name behavior without renaming the person. You say with surgical accuracy, this is what happened, this is what must stop, this is what will be repaired, this is what remains good. Fury, deprived of a parade, puts on work clothes. The injury, precisely described, becomes amendable. Those present feel governed rather than punished. The distinction is the difference between fear and respect, between compliance that backfires and consent that holds. Your body speaks the same language. You arrange yourself as if others mattered. You angle your stance to widen a crowded path. You modulate your tone to keep oxygen in the discussion. You set a glass down as if the table could feel and pass a plate as if ceramic had a memory. These gestures look small until you notice that they are policy in miniature. Under their influence, a room stops injuring itself on the furniture of hurry. Even objects behave better. Doors close softly, chairs return to place, lights remember to be gentle, because your hands have been kind enough to teach them. The lesson is not sentimental, it is structural. Kindness is how strength preserves what it values. Your boundaries are clean and unafraid. A yes from you arrives paid in advance. A no arrives like a good fence. Visible, honest, with a gate you are willing to open when the season changes. Neither is a weapon. Both are design. People walk away from your limits unhumiliated because your limits are not a test of their worth. They are the architecture that keeps the whole house standing. Boundaries like this invite self-respect in those who meet them. The person who once pushed to verify their power now chooses to keep their shape. The person who once folded to buy approval learns that standing is not a threat in weather like yours. Strength that protects reproduces its own kind. There will be invitations to perform ferocity so that fragile egos can feel guarded. You decline, and you decline gently. You refuse to be baited into thunder because thunder is cheap weather. You remain seasonal. Spring plants, summer gives, autumn gathers, winter keeps. In every season, your protection is the same. Preserve the conditions under which truth can breathe. Repair can work, consent can speak, and joy can go to bed on time. People feel the boundary of your care like a coastline, trustworthy even when the waves rise. They stop building where erosion is inevitable. They start building where tomorrow is welcome. Your humor, too, knows how to shelter. You do not weaponize wit to score dominance. You use it to oil the hinge that would otherwise squeal. It is the light that finds the exit when the room is 2 notches too tight. It is never paid for with a human face. Under such laughter, fear steps outside to cool off and returns ready to be reasonable. The woman who is bracing for ridicule laughs from her belly and remains whole. The man who hides behind irony relaxes enough to be accurate. Warriors lay down their megaphones and pick up their tools. Protection that can laugh without wounding is the rarest kind. It keeps the soul intact while it lifts the mood. Your strength also protects in absence, which is the final proof. You leave early enough that kindness still has breath. You close the door softly, as if the house had nerves. You send the single message that honors what was possible and does not try to stretch it into legend. The night remains whole because you refuse to mortgage tomorrow for one more applause. People sleep earlier and wake with fewer refunds to issue to their own conscience. They attribute the peace to luck. It was not luck. It was your stewardship of endings. Endings protect beginnings. That is their secret generosity. Repair is your favorite instrument because it plays the future. When you miss, and you will, because you are human, you mend while the bruise is pale. You do it without parade. I did this, it caused that. Here is how I will make it right. You then do it. This form of protection prevents resentment from growing teeth. It teaches onlookers that strength is not the absence of error, but the speed and accuracy of response. Others imitate you without saying so. Apologies get cheaper in rooms you frequent. Accountability loses its drama and gains its dignity. The culture thickens until it can bear weight. You carry power like a loan from something higher, and this humility keeps your protection clean. Praise lands where labor lived. Critique sharpens craft without renegotiating your worth. You neither hoard credit nor outsource blame. You do not convert access into appetite. You do not sell intimacy for influence. You keep appetites downstream from your values. In this alignment, your sexual energy becomes the local climate in which consent never has to shout and boundaries never have to apologize. People remember feeling more themselves near you. They call that respect. What they mean is that your strength did not ask them to be smaller to feel large. Walk forward, keeping faith with the simple vows that make this possible. Water before opinion, so patience stays solvent. Breath before reply, so tone remains human. Movement before mood, so feeling stays in motion rather than becoming a manager. Rest before rescue, so help is not vanity. Truth before theater, so outcomes outlive applause. When you keep these, protection is not an effort you perform, it is a weather you bring. Rooms learn to hold themselves the way you held them. People return to the better customs your presence made easy. They will not always name you when they choose gentler roads and braver words. They do not need to. The proof of strength is not that they remember your posture. It is that they can keep theirs. Chosen one, there is a kind of looking that writes laws in the room without ever raising its voice. Your eyes have become that quiet legislature. They do not glare to intimidate or glitter to seduce. They hold. They hold the line on dignity. They hold the temperature at human. They hold the door for truth to arrive on its own feet. A person meets your gaze and recognizes a country where they will not be taxed for being real. Before any word escapes your mouth, people know the rules. Honesty costs less here, spectacle pays nothing, consent is the language, and kindness is legal tender. You learn this gaze by allowing it to stop being hungry. Hungry eyes bargain, tally, and seek leverage. Yours have given up the trade. They return what they see instead of trying to own it. The guarded learn that paper armor is heat stroke, and they loosen it themselves. The polished learn that mirror shine doesn't make a stronger bone, and they risk the unvarnished truth. The ashamed learn that confession here is not public theater, but private repair, and they offer the small sentence that restores a whole hour. Your eyes do not perform rescue, they permit it. You watch like a harbor watches weather, not to control tide or wind, but to keep ships honest about their course. There is discipline in how you look away. Respect is as evident in your turning as in your attention. You blink when appetite wants to stare. You give privacy a breath when curiosity wants a tour. You soften the focus when someone is deciding whether a story belongs to the room or to their pillow. People feel in their nervous systems that your seeing is a stewardship, not a sport. That sense of safety pulls the poison out of performance. It lets the shy voice attempt a second sentence, which is where meaning lives. It lets the loud voice trade thunder for precision, which is where leadership lives. It lets the room discover that it did not need a hero, it needed a standard. Your sexual energy is not missing from this gaze. It is what keeps it honest. Heat lives in the pupil, like a well-tended flame, visible, governed, unapologetic. Everyone can tell it will not be weaponized. Everyone can tell it will not purchase closeness on credit. Your eyes read consent in breath and shoulders before words are invited, and when the answer is delay or decline, they bless the answer without turning away love. The feminine recognizes this literacy immediately. She does not shrink to be safe. She expands because she is safe. The masculine, freed from the starving need to dominate, remembers how to be useful. Respect grows on that soil as naturally as green after rain. You have learned to praise with your eyes in a way that doesn't pin a person to a single bright angle. You nod where effort actually lived. You smile at a boundary as if it were beautiful architecture, because it is. You let admiration be accurate, and accuracy is liberation. People are not turned into mascots for your taste. They are returned to themselves with a clearer outline. In your presence, achievement is allowed to be craftsmanship instead of costume. Competence is allowed to be quiet, and brilliance is allowed to be breathable. A room that sees itself clearly behaves better after you leave. That is the measure of a gaze that commands without control. When conflict enters, your eyes become a table. They lay the problem down flat, remove the audience from the quarrel, and point to what is fixable. You never use your seeing to gather ammunition. You use it to measure the break. Here is where it bent. Here is where it cracked. Here is what will carry weight again if we mend it now. Fury loses altitude because it cannot cash in on spectacle where your gaze refuses to sell attention at that price. Even the offended find themselves grateful to be handled like adults, and gratitude is the quickest road to agreement that lasts. You do not let sarcasm rent your pupils. Cheap cleverness cannot afford the toll your standards charge. When humor arrives armed, you ask it to set down its blades and work as relief instead of entertainment. You do it without scolding, with a glance that says we can be lighter without drawing blood. Laughter discovers its vocation again. Shoulders lower, mouths soften. That is also a kind of command, one that requires no decree.